In this video, you'll learn about what benefits you may be able to get in your Florida workers' compensation case. If this is your first time to my channel, my name is Domenic Celeste, a virtual accident attorney. I'm based in Palm Beach County, Florida, and I represent those injured on the job in workers' compensation and due to the fault of another in personal injury. This channel is all about answering your questions and giving you tips relating to Florida workers' compensation and personal injury law. Now, before we get started, I have to show you this disclaimer, so just hold tight. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Before we get into what you may be able to get from your work comp case, I want to tell you about what you can't get. You cannot get compensation or money for things like pain and suffering, loss of enjoyment of life, mental anguish, or what's called punitive damages, which is money paid as a punishment. Rather, there are only two classifications of benefits that you can get in a work comp case: lost wages and medical care. This video will not be going over what is required to qualify for those benefits, but rather I'll be just talking about the specific benefits you may be able to get if you qualify. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to know when I release the videos going over all the different requirements to qualify for lost wages and medical care. With that said, let's first talk about lost wages, and then we'll later get into medical care. So what type of lost wages might you expect if you qualify? Firstly, you need to know that work comp doesn't pay your full wages if you're out from work. Rather, you get paid a percentage of your average weekly wage, or AWW, which is calculated based on the 13 weeks prior to your accident. And this percentage, which is called your compensation rate, is typically paid out at around 2/3 or 66.67% of your average weekly wage. Now, there are different types of classification of disability benefits, and when I say disability, I mean your ability to work, that you should be aware of as well, which I'll get into more in my next video, as each have different requirements to qualify. But those classifications are temporary or permanent, and partial or total. Further, the Westfall case actually changed the statutory limitations as to how many weeks you can get in disability benefits and work comp, from 104 weeks, which is 2 years, to 260 weeks, which is 5 years. Another classification of lost wages is if your doctor placed you at what's called maximum medical improvement, or MMI, which basically means that you're as good as you're going to get medically, and assigns you a permanent impairment rating to your body as a whole. Impairment benefits are paid at 75% of your temporary total disability rate, and the number of weeks you're paid depends on your rating percentage. So let's break down how much you get paid. From 1 to 10%, you get paid 2 weeks for each percentage point. From 11 to 15%, you get paid 3 weeks for each percentage point. From 16 to 20%, you get paid 4 weeks for each percentage point. And for anything that's 21% or more, you get paid 6 weeks for each percent. So let's say you've been assigned by your doctor a 22% impairment rating. You'd get 20 weeks plus 15 weeks plus 20 weeks plus 12 weeks for a total of 67 weeks of payments. Lastly, you can get something called an advance, which is where you get an amount of money in advance, whether you're getting work comp checks or not, if you meet certain requirements. The easiest advance amount that you can get is $2,000, because if you ask for more, there are more stringent requirements. An advance is basically an advance payment on future compensation, which work comp can recoup if you get paid compensation or settle your case in the future. I'll be releasing a video going all the factors you need to prove in order to get an advance, so stay tuned for that. Now let's get into what sort of medical care that you might be able to get in your work comp case. First, before I go any further, you need to know that work comp has the exclusive right to choose your doctors, and they also don't have to pay for any treatment that isn't recommended by an authorized doctor. Now, there are certain exceptions to this, including that they may have to pay for treatment recommended by your expert, called an independent medical examiner, or IME, or the judge's expert, called an expert medical advisor, or EMA, if they stipulate the payment or you win in court. The other exceptions are if you go to a hospital that they didn't send you to, if you can prove it was an emergency, or if you can prove that the personal doctor you went to falls under the self-help provision of the work comp statute. More on that to come in another video. Okay, so what medical care can you actually get? So this is typically how it works. You'll start by going to an authorized clinic. Then you might be sent for different imaging studies like x-rays or MRIs. And then based on those imaging studies, you might be sent to a specialist like an orthopedist or a pain management specialist. But what happens if the work comp doctor releases you, or you just don't like the doctor? Well, in that case, you're also entitled to a new doctor called a one-time change in physician, but only once per case. The specialty in the change in doctor must be the same as the previous doctor, and the new doctor can't be associated with the previous doctor. This means if you have two doctors that you don't like or that have released you with different specialties, you have to decide from which doctor would be the best to change. Now, unfortunately, work comp typically gets to pick this change in doctor too, unless something very rare happens. So stay tuned for my video on one-time changes to find out what that something is. Any medical care that's recommended by one of the doctors I talked about earlier, such as medications, imaging, therapy, injections, braces, surgery, or anything else that's causally related and reasonable and medically necessary, may be covered and thus paid by work comp. You can even get either medical transportation to and from your authorized appointments or reimbursement from medical mileage if you drive yourself. And even if your doctor releases you, you're still able to receive what's called palliative care, which isn't going to make you any better medically, but will help you get through the day, and typically includes things like medications and sometimes injections. However, if you've been released, just know you'll have to pay a $10 copay to see the work comp doctor, with the rest of the tab picked up by work comp. The only medical care that you can choose yourself, except for getting to pick your one-time change in physician under rare circumstances, is what pharmacy you want to use. And this is your only exclusive right to choose under the statute. But be careful here though, because work comp will usually send you some bogus prescription card telling you to go to a certain pharmacy so that you lose that one right. And unfortunately, most unrepresented injured workers fall for it because they don't know any better. So in summary, there are only two types of benefits that you can get in work comp: lost wages and medical care. To summarize lost wages, you get paid typically around 2/3 of your average weekly wage if you qualify, and if you're given a permanent impairment rating, you get paid 75% of your temporary total disability rate for a certain number of weeks per percentage point of your impairment rating, and you also might be able to get a $2,000 more advance on future compensation. And to summarize medical care, work comp gets to pick your doctor. In most instances, you're changing doctor too. They also may pay for you to see any type of doctor or get any kind of treatment so long as it's recommended by an authorized doctor, or under certain circumstances recommended by your expert, the judge's expert, an emergency visit to the hospital, or your personal doctor if you qualify under the self-help rule if it's causally related and reasonable and medically necessary. You can also get medical transportation to and from your authorized appointments or reimbursement if you drive yourself. And lastly, you have the absolute right to choosing your own pharmacy. I hope after watching this video, you're a little more familiar with what sort of benefits you may be able to get from your work comp case if you get hurt at work. So as you can see, Florida workers' compensation law can be really complex, but what can you do about it? Well, you can hire an attorney that's licensed to practice law in Florida and that handles workers' compensation cases, that represents real clients, goes to court, that knows what they're doing. And if you or someone you know were injured on the job or due to the fault of another, give me a call. Any time of the day or night, I have a 24/7, 365 receptionist, or you can go to my website to fill out an intake and schedule a free consultation. Or you know what? You can just text me, 561-935-3822. But that's it for this video. If you got value out of it or if you learned something, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out. If you have a question, let me know in the comments below and I'll try and answer it. Like and follow me on all my socials to stay updated. And if you want to learn more about me, my firm, Florida work comp, or personal injury law, just go to my website, virtualaccidentattorney.com. Alright, so that's it for now. Again, my name's Domenic Celeste, the virtual accident attorney. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.